Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.
Hello, this is Nick Pope, and you're listening to the Paranormal UK radio network, the UK's biggest paranormal network. And this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
Hello and welcome to the show. Thanks for that, Nick. Okay, now, this show today, which I'm doing, is really an unplanned, and I'm going to call it a special, because the guest I've got on, Philip Mantle, we were going to do a show a few weeks back, but Philip fell ill and we had to cancel it. We were going to sort of reschedule it, but we've rescheduled this a bit early now because of all this, I'm going to call it nonsense, about the alien autopsy nonsense that's resurfaced, and it's in all the newspapers and the news and everything. I think I'm finding it quite hilarious because I think Phil feels much the same, but there's a lot of annoyance with it as well because there's been a lot of there seems to be a lot of Facebook, let's call it bad blood about it, and but we'll see where this leads, and hopefully I'll have Phil on in a moment, but I'm just going to do a couple of call-outs like I normally do now. And I've got a call-out for this time. It's Chris Evers in Hull, UK, because he's another presenter on this network. He's done a couple of shows with Spiros, Malaris and Phil. So we've got to give him a call. Chant Hannah, also in the USA, has been involved in a few of the arguments, so we've got to give her a call out. And I've got to give a call out to Spiros Malaris himself, from London, UK, who's the centre of attention in all of this, really. And I do intend to get him back on again, because I did a two-part show with him a few shows back, where he laid it all on the line about how the film was made and everything. But since then, this is all resurfaced again, and well, it's just all gone crazy. So I think with that crazy thing in mind, let's get Phil Mantle onto the show. Welcome, Phil.
Nice to speak to you, David.
Hello, Phil. It's nice to have you on, and I hope you're all feeling a lot better now than and unfortunately we had to cancel that show previously, but we've gone in a little bit of a different direction. I know we were going to talk, I certainly was going to talk about the alien autopsy with the book and everything you wrote about it, but I think we've really got to make this a special show completely about the alien autopsy and your part in it. Well, not in it, but your research into it.
Yeah, my pleasure, David. It really is.
Because originally you wrote a book. Well, no, actually you had a part in a book called Beyond Roswell, which you contributed to. Perhaps you'd like to tell us a bit about that first, and then tell us how you've sort of disowned your part in it.
Yeah, I mean, Beyond Roswell goes back to sort of the mid-1990s. Co-authored with Michael Hessemer from Germany. Michael at that time was a very active UFO researcher. He was also editor of a German newsstand magazine called Magazine 2000. He was widely travelled, and Michael wrote Beyond Roswell first in German, and I didn't have any part in that. And Michael asked me to contribute to the English language version if we could get a contract. So, although I am the co-author, Michael wrote the vast majority of the book. I'll make no bones about that. I contributed work mainly about the alien autopsy film.
I mean, it's an interesting book. I mean, as far as the Roswell incident, though, it's quite informative with all the...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm not taking away anything from Michael. It's very well written. Michael was one of these researchers who wouldn't sit behind his desk. I mean, if there was a new witness cropped up somewhere, Michael would be on the phone and on the next airplane, to try and interview them. So, Michael's very passionate about his beliefs and did an excellent job. And at that time, the alien autopsy itself was going full swing. And we took a very positive stance regarding its authenticity.
I believe it.
Yeah. So, I make no bones about that. I make no apologies for it, and, but since then, both with Roswell in general and, the alien autopsy film itself, my opinions have changed, as they have done with a whole host of topics down the years. I think, the beauty, if you like, of research, that if you do enough of it, it can either reinforce your ideas or force you to change them with the information and the evidence you come across. So, I still have no doubt that something, did crash at Roswell, New Mexico back in 1947. However, I am skeptical that it was a vehicle from another world. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying I'm skeptical of it and would love to be proven wrong. And of course, my views regarding the alien autopsy film have done a complete, about face, because of the ongoing research that we did after the book Beyond Roswell was published, and a lot more things happened. To where I've reached the stage, some years ago now, but certainly today, that the alien autopsy film that was released by Ray Santilli in 1995 is indeed a fake, 100% fake, and I am confident that, I have tracked it from its very inception right the way through to today, and I've no doubt about it. And it does sadden me somewhat, David, that so-called UFO researchers, many of whom I'll remain nameless, have tried to jump on the bandwagon now because of this recent memo that's come out, and try and reinvent the wheel when the work has already been done.
Sure,
it's simple as that.
I mean, I'd like to ask, where have these people been? Because it's obviously been proven, and with Spiros coming out of, not out of the woodwork, I'm not going to use that term, but he came out and admitted it all. He's shown how it was done and everything. I really don't understand where these researchers have kind of don't know about that. I don't understand it.
Well, I think some of them do. We have to also understand that there may be, newcomers to this subject who are not as well versed as us. So I can appreciate that. But some of the long-termers, there is no excuse whatsoever. And
I think you're probably referring to Linda Moulton Howell, are you? Because she did a little presentation a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago now. And she's actually got her copyright over Spiros' copyright.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I watched that, I was not surprised. I've met Linda a few times, and I've sent her not a battery of emails. I've sent her a small number pointing out the errors that she's making. I even offered a free copy of my book, a PDF. Not even had the courtesy of a reply. So you can figure out why for yourself.
Yeah, well, I've heard those types of comments from other people before anyway, so. But there you go. But I mean, and you have been kind enough to offer those free PDFs to quite an audience out there as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, my book, Roswell Alien Autopsy, came out a few years ago. I've amended little bits of it. I'll probably have to amend another bit now. But I thought, there's been such a debate about it. There was no way I could keep up with all the different threads and the emails and the messages. So in my own small way, David, I thought the best way I can do it is perhaps to offer to anyone who wants it. And this offer is still open. If anyone wants a free PDF copy of my book, you just have to send me an email or a private message on Facebook, give me their email address, and they can have one. There's no strings attached, no nothing. All I do is, here's the book.
Yeah. When I put this show out on my page, the Paranormal Dimensions page, I will actually mention that again, and I'll put your email address, and if anyone wants a copy, then they'll be quite welcome to have one, won't they, Philip?
Absolutely. I mean, I've sent out probably over about 100 already, and I'm willing to keep this offer open indefinitely. You know,
personally, I've got a hard copy myself, which you kindly signed for me a couple of years ago, but. I think it's nice to have a PDF copy as well, because you can actually, sometimes you're sitting in front of your computer, you don't want to get a book out, and, you know, you can sort of reference bits and pieces,
well, not only that, David, if you've got a colleague that's interested, you can just forward the PDF on to them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, you can say, have a read of this then. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a good idea. Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I take it where you want to take it, Philip. I mean, obviously from beyond Roswell into your research into the truth behind the Roswell alien autopsy.
Yeah, I mean, going way back now, David, into that. I mean, first off, I was first contacted by Ray Santilli in 1993. At that time, I was Bufora's press officer. And it's the, you know, the dawn of email, which we didn't have at that time. Yeah. So letters was still the king. And we had an inquiry from, the Merlin Group, which was Ray Santilli's company, just asking, in general, if we, Bufora, could assist with the making of a UFO documentary. So I replied, I sent, you know, we had a sort of a little leaflet all about Bufora, I sent that. Exchanged a couple of letters, and then eventually spoke to Ray on the telephone. And again, you know, there was no mention of Roswell or alien autopsy to begin with. And it was only some months down the line, this may have now tipped over into, you know, 1994, when Ray said, well, you know, Philip, I actually have film of the crash at Roswell, and the creature's been, you know, dissected, autopsied. So obviously my instant reaction was, that's a great story. Show me.
Yeah. Well, you know, your mouth would fall open, wouldn't it?
Yeah, okay, just really? Show me. Yeah, show me. So, you know, we had this conversation backwards and forwards. I met Ray in London when we were helping to promote the movie Fire in the Sky. We held an evening presentation with Mike Rogers and Travis Walton, and a little press conference afterwards. And Ray's offices in London weren't far from the venue, so I invited him to attend, and he did. He came along, and he had a quick chat with him, and he told me about being in Cleveland, Ohio in 1993. Met an old boy who filmed Elvis as a you know, a nobody. So he bought this Elvis footage off him, and then Ray said, well, the old chap said, well, if you like that, you know, I used to be in the military in the 1940s during the war as a cameraman, and I filmed the crash at Roswell. So Ray claimed he took an internal flight to this gentleman's house, and they literally got an old projector out, and he showed it him on his wall, and he could see his wartime memorabilia around the house, you know, and this kind of thing, and they shook hands on a deal, and it was to be cash. And the proviso was not to release this old boy's identity. So that was the, you know, the basis of the story. And I said, it's a great story, Ray, but just show me the film. So it went on, yes, I can, no, I can't. So in the end, I just said, look, you know, get lost. You know, it's just another fantastic story. But I got his business card, and then in early 1995, again, as part of Bufora, I was sent a video cassette of the movie Roswell that had been made by Paul Davids in the US. It was now being released here by Sony. It was only a small time release. There was no big fanfare. They just sent us a review copy. And it prompted me to think, oh, I wonder if that Santilli guy still claims to have this Roswell film. So I pulled out his business card. I used to keep them all in a box. And I rang him out of the blue. And he says, yes, I do, Philip, but you don't believe me. I said, well, I can't believe you until you show me it. So he said, look, make an appointment with my secretary and come down and sit, you know. So we did exactly that, my wife and I. we drove to London to his offices in Balcombe Street, and, you know, he showed us, first off, he showed us a piece of film, on VHS, which he called the tent footage. He claimed that this was in a field tent, filmed on site in the desert, you know, before they shipped the bodies off to wherever. So what you see is a creature on a slab. It's covered by a blanket. You see the head poking out the top. There's two men in white coats to the far side, seem to have a knife in their hand and some fleshy material. There's a lamp hanging up. The camera's static. The camera does not move. And every now and again, there's a man with his walks in front of the camera with his back to it. It's black and white, no sound. And he actually gave me a copy. And I still have that VHS here today. I've got nothing I can play it on now, but I still have it. Yeah. So, you know, at least we could confirm that film did exist. It was no longer just a story. So I arranged, you know, about a month or so later to go down again and see more. So over the next few weeks, we were shown two separate alien autopsy films. So there are two, and they're both different. Same creature, same room, same, you know, white-suited people in it. And we were shown some wreckage, called the debris footage. So when he showed us the more clearer autopsy film, I asked Ray what his intentions were, what he was going to do with it. And he said, I'm going to make a documentary, and I'm going to put it on video, and I'm going to sell it. And that's it. You'll be able to buy it direct from me, or we'll have it in the high street shops maybe, you know, whichever chain. And that was it. There was no television involved. So I thought, this film really needs to get out into the public. And one of the other things I also did for Bufora, I was their conference organizer. And that year, 1995, I already had the conference organized for August in Sheffield. All the speakers booked, everything. So just off the top of my head, I asked Ray if he would show it at our conference. And to my surprise, he said yes.
So really, at this point, you believed it was a true footage?
Well, I was keeping my options open. What I want, you know, we've been talking on and off for 18 months. What we could confirm is that film did exist. What this film was, where it came from, I don't know. You know, and I looked around Ray's office. This was no grand office on Balcombe Street. You know, it was a small business. My impression that if this was a fake, Ray certainly hadn't made it because, he was in the business of buying and selling, David. This, you know, that's what he did for a living and probably still does. He would license, mainly music he worked in, you know, he'd license.
This is why it was after the Elvis footage, I presume.
That's right, you know, and it's claimed that he's got one of the biggest private collections of Elvis memorabilia outside of Graceland.
Oh, right. I'll have to pay a visit.
Yeah. Well, we could actually confirm that he did go to Cleveland, Ohio, but not in 1993. It was actually the year before. The reason being, I think it was in the Sunday Mirror or the Sunday People. Ray actually did a feature in it, and it was talking about his trip to Cleveland, and he actually did buy some memorabilia. These were letters. And for some reason, he's not allowed to publish the letters for whatever reason. I don't know the intricacies behind copyright and things like that. But nonetheless, it did confirm he'd been out there and bought some Elvis stuff, you know. So I just thought we need to get it out in the open. If we do, then you, I, and everyone else can say, that's my grandfather on there. You know, he told me about it. Or, I'm one of the actors on there. We filmed it at, you know, Elstree in a backlot. Or I provided the props for it. It's a fake. You know, whichever way you want to look at it. So Ray says, I'll show it at your conference on one condition. And I said, what's that? He says, well, you help me research it. So we shook hands and that was it. There was no money involved or anything like that. Ray was then still making his own documentary for sale as well. And he asked me to help on that. And he paid me for it. People have said, oh, Philip Mantle was paid by Ray Santilli. I wasn't paid. I was paid to work on Ray's documentary. Now, when it was released, the narration is done by Brian Blessed. well-known British actor. So I wrote it. I wrote all that. When you hear Brian Blessed on Ray's documentary, it's my words. I also set up a number of interviews with various people that Ray, in the end didn't bother with. I also set up PAUK in Hemel Hempstead to analyse the film. Even the British Film Institute, which was also nearby, came on board. I didn't organise that. That was done via Kodak. So once all that work was done, that was me finished. And the research side of the film went on totally separately. So, I think it was round about, April, May time, 1995. I got a phone call from a colleague in Sheffield who was working on a local newspaper. And he said, I'm doing an article about a UFO investigator who's just starting up, Philip. I know you've got a conference in August. Give us a couple of lines about it and I'll organise something, grander later for you. So I said, we've got the first 2 Russian scientists coming, there's this, that. And I said, oh, by the way, the alien autopsy film. Just off the cuff, and then a couple of days later after this went out, I think it's the Sheffield Star, a press agency from Sheffield rang me, and the only thing they were interested in was this alien autopsy. They quizzed me about that, and all I could repeat to them was what I'd seen and what Ray Santilli had told me. And I never thought no more about it, David, and then come the weekend, it just went bananas. Obviously, the press agency had sent this out, and literally this was still the days of fax machines. My old fax machine just couldn't keep up because they couldn't find Ray Santilli because it just mentioned London businessman Ray Santilli. Well, he didn't live in London. His phone number was ex-directory, and there was no mention of his company. If they mentioned his company name, then they would have been able to find him. But Philip Mantle, Batley, in West Yorkshire, I'm in the phone book. So everybody and his dog was phoning me, and pretty much all I could do was pass them on to Ray, because and that's when the television became involved. I think it was around about April time. And so that's how it kicked off in the public domain. And of course, Ray had his own private screening on May the 5th at the London Museum. That was an invited audience. There was a lot of media there. And he did turn up and show the film at our conference in August. I mean, the place was packed. We had to hire an extra room and show it all on CCTV. Such was the demand. And it slowly became the biggest UFO controversy of its time. Now, what I decided to do, rightly or wrong, David, was in public and to Ray's face, I would support the authenticity of the film. Because I knew by this time, in fact, I got to know quite early on how Ray worked. If you demanded anything of him, he would just cut you off. For example, God rest his soul, he's not alive anymore, but Stanton Friedman. I arranged for Stanton to meet Ray. They did meet. And Stanton faxed him with a list of demands.
Well, the diva that he is, yep.
Yeah, so Ray just said, who was this fella? It's my film. Who is he to demand anything? So
did Stanton actually believe it, or was he?
Oh, not at all.
No, he didn't believe it at all, right? Okay.
No, I mean, before he came to a decision, he kept an open mind, in fairness to Stan. But the one thing that did it for him, I think, very early on was Santilli claimed that he had seen. Somebody asked Santilli, what convinced you the film was real? He said, you could see President Truman on it so clearly that you could read his lips. And of course, Truman is not on it anywhere. And there's dates when these various things should have happened. So Stanton contacted the Truman Library and checked where it was, and he was accounted for on all these dates that Santilli gave him. So, in other words, it was bullshit,
So I'll cut that out later.
Yeah, so Stanton, issued his demands, and Santilli never bothered with him again. So I decided to take a different stance, was, play ball with him, but behind the scenes try and get to the bottom of it, whichever way I could. And I was convinced, David, rightly or wrongly, that once that film was shown on television, and it was around the world. I mean, I think the Fox special Alien Autopsy Fact or Fiction had an audience between 15 and 20 million. I was certain that, someone would contact either me or someone else and say, I've got some info about this, that's me. Yeah. I'm an actor and I got paid, by whoever, but nothing, it was the typical sort of tumbleweed scene. Absolutely nothing. And I was amazed, and of course, the film rolled on, it getting screened elsewhere. Eventually the internet kicked in and there was discussions on CompuServe forums and so on, but not a thing. So I was still I still stuck to my stance of in public supporting Ray, but behind the scenes, just trying to get to the bottom. I worked with colleagues around the world. One was Michael Hesseman in Germany, Odd Gunnar Road in Norway, Maurizio Beata and Roberto Panotti in Italy, Tim Matthews here in the UK, and others. And, of course, Bob Kiviat, the producer of Alien Autopsy Fact or Fiction. Bob and I are still in contact to this very day. In fact, I spoke to him just at the weekend. So, and just what I did every now and again, I was busy lecturing at that point, and I would write an update every now and again, David, try and keep it in the public eye as much as I could, in the hope that somebody would come forward, and that's how I, rightly or wrongly, how I investigated this film.
So, at this point, so Spiros was obviously unknown at that point, that he was all behind it.
Well, exactly. There was also a film made that was supposedly an interview with the cameraman. So we have 5 separate films, right? So, first off, don't ask me what year it was, because I can't remember, but I got an email from a chap called Keith. It was called Keith Goodyear. And he said, Philip, I know something about the Alien Autopsy film. Okay. So Keith gave me his phone number and I rang him. Now, Keith was not involved in making it at all. But Keith was involved in videos, in animation and things like that. He said, I went to the offices of a company called AK Music, with the view of working for them. Doing a bit of this, bit of that. And he said, while I'm there, he said, the phone rings. And one of the guys who owns this little company picks it up, and it's Ray Santilli he's talking to. So he puts the phone down, and Keith says to this chap, is that the Ray Santilli? He said, what do you mean, the Ray Santilli? He says, the Alien Autopsy guy. And he says, this fella started laughing, and he says, yeah. He said, but he didn't make it, we did.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it?
So he gave me the details of this company. It was called AK Music. AK stood for Andy and Keith. Another Keith, was a gentleman called Keith Bateman. Now, I eventually tracked Keith down, and what he eventually told me was that, yes, indeed, he didn't make the actual 2 autopsy videos. He made the tent footage, which was the first piece of film, as I mentioned, that Ray Santilli showed to me and others. That was the bait that lured us in. He also sold that piece of film to Fox as part of his deal, and then pulled it at the last moment. And what Keith went on to tell us was, he said, we used to work with Ray. I didn't work for him. He said, I make karaoke videos. So, we would license a bit of music from him, vice versa. And he said, we used to have sort of daft brainstorming sessions to see how we could, work on another project. So we're chatting away one day, and one of the lads who worked for me said, great to have some Roswell footage, simply because he was reading a book about Roswell. Now that chap, I have a statement from him. He's called Philip Yarman, and he has confirmed that. And so Keith said, he took up the cudgel to Keith. Keith's a great character, lovely fella, bit of a Jack the Lad, and I mean that in the nicest way. Got a great wicked sense of humour. So he went off to a farm in Bedfordshire and made the alien autopsy film. Underneath the blanket is his son. The head of the alien is a polystyrene head for putting wigs on. You know, and he cut the eyes out and made them bigger and put orange peel in there and just blacked him out. One of the guys in white coats is a chap called Elliot who worked for him. The guy next to him is a local butcher. And the chap who walks in front of the camera every now and again, that's the farmer on whose farm they filmed it. Originally it was shot in colour. So then Keith put it through, you know, a little computer and changed it. I actually have a colour still from the film now that Keith gave me. And he says, what I did, Philip, I took that to Santilli, showed it to him, and he said, no, that's rubbish. It's too dark. It's too dingy. Nobody will ever fall for that. Go away and get me a budget to make something better and brighter. So Keith did exactly that, and he came back with a budget, and Keith added his own 10% on, I think, but Ray said, no, that's too much, go away. But Santilli kept the tent footage, and the idea was then born. And that's where it all began. And, you know, we took it from there. Now, every year in France, we're aware of the Cannes Film Festival, but there's also a similar business event, but this time for television. And in early 1995, Spiros Malaris was going to this convention, and he got a business directory that goes with it. And he was doing some filming over there. He used to run his own little film company, and he had some spare time on his hands while I was there, so he faxed a number of companies at random saying, you know, we're for hire. He quite by chance he met up with Ray Santilli. The only reason he faxed Santilli is because, you know, their offices weren't far away. He met Santilli at this festival. Santilli told him this cock and bull story about the mysterious military cameraman and so on. So when they got back, Spiros went to his office, showed him the videotape, the tent footage, and Spiros says, that's fake. Yeah. That's never seen film. That's been shot on video. So Ray moaned that he'd spent a lot of money on it and all that, because of course he hadn't. So Spiros says, well, my friend John Humphreys is a fully trained Royal Academy sculptor who's worked in the film and television business. We can make you a real one. And the budget was, I think, around about 30 to 35,000.
Yeah, it's not quite a lot of money, isn't it, really? It's not.
Yeah. But Ray didn't put the money up. His business partner in Germany, Volker Spielberg, did. Now, Spiros, conceived it, designed it, built the set, the props, hired the props, the whole shebang. They built the set in his sister's apartment in Camden because she was having the place renovated anyway. John Humphreys made the dummies and hey presto, they filmed the first autopsy, and Spiros's girlfriend at the time, she'd done all the medical research, and she said, you've done something wrong. I can't remember which part of it, but something was wrong, and she said, if you show that, they'll not believe it. So they'd run out of money.
Was it something to do with the tools used? I think that came into
it. No, it was one of the procedures they did. They did a kind of a gynecological examination, shall we say. And she said, you would never do that in an autopsy. There is no point, right. So they'd run out of money. Santilli said, well, that's it. So Spiros says, no, tell you what we'll do. We'll make another one and we'll do it tomorrow and I'll pay for it. I'll pay the money for it. I'll pay the crew, pay for the model, whatever. So they went back the next day, made another model from the mould. This time there was a fault with that. There's a big hole in the leg, so they had to improvise. So in that leg they put some animal bones from the butchers and so on.
Yeah, you used a blowtorch on it apparently to make it look like an injury, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. They improvised and filmed it, and that's the one that everyone's seen on television or on the internet. The other one I've seen once, Maurizio Baiata from Italy's seen it. I believe Colin Andrews has seen it. So there's a few of us seen the other one. It's much brighter because it hasn't been aged, because they've never released it. And that's how Spiros got involved. And from what you know, I'm speaking to Spiros, his deal with Santilli such was he didn't get paid anything. In fact, he was out of pocket.
Well, I was going to ask that. What was his reasoning behind actually forking the money out?
Well, the premise to begin with was that make this film, they would release it, and then 6 months or so down the line, they'd hold their hands up and say it was us, and this is how we did it, in the hope that they would then get positive attention, and his little film business would do more, John would get more work as a sculptor, and so on. But every time he went back to Santilli and said, how's it going, he just got the brush off, saying, I've not made my money back. Bear in mind, he hadn't put any money up.
Yeah.
So in the end, Spiros just, his business did increase. Anyway, he went on to run his own studios at Waterfall Studios in London. And of course he worked with, BBC, etc., etc. They would license the studio time from him, and that kind of thing. So, I carried on, still with the same premise, saying in public that it was authentic. And then, I don't know, again, I can't remember the year, but it was 2003-ish. Again, an email out of the blue from a gentleman called Simon. And he asked, what had happened is I had an article published in Graham Birdsall's newsstand magazine, UFO magazine. And he put pictures of the alien autopsy on the front cover. Simon had seen it because it was a newsstand mag. And he said, I didn't know there was any interest still in the alien autopsy. I said, well, yeah, there is. But, perhaps, it's now online rather than in the newspapers. So he gave me his phone number. We had a chat. And he said, well, my friend made the dummies for it. I said, come on. Anyway, Tim Matthews and I arranged to meet this chap in Manchester. That was his choice, at a particular cafe. So we did. And he said, yeah. And he says, my pal actually made the dummies, the aliens, whatever you want to call them, for the alien autopsy film for Ray Santilli. So I said, well, tell us who he is. He said, I can't. He said, is there any television still interested? And I said, possibly, but, I can't guarantee it, but possibly. So I put him in touch with Bob Kiviat, the producer of Alien Autopsy Fact or Fiction. But before I did that, Simon gave us a little hint of who his friend was. I don't think he did it on purpose. Way back when on Channel 4, there was a successful TV series called Max Headroom.
Yeah.
And basically, it was this head that was talking. Well, that was a real head, and the guy who made it was John Humphreys.
Right, yeah, it was quite a groundbreaking thing at the time, wasn't it? It looked really, real, but not real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, John Humphreys was the guy who made it.
Ah, yeah.
So off he went, and Bob Kiviat spoke to John Humphreys. We found out his name, got a couple of quotes from John. But in his conversation with Humphreys, Bob told quite openly, he says, I think John tried to over-exaggerate his part in all of this, but he did say to Bob, it's Spiros you need to talk to. No second name, just this mysterious Spiros. Anyway, in the end, Humphreys pulled out of doing a deal with Bob because he was then asked to go and work on the Ant and Dec movie, Alien Autopsy. So, we were left dangling again. So, again, I happened to find out who was making the movie here in the UK. It was a company called QWERTY Films. And I contacted them and I spoke to them on the phone, and I just said, I'm writing a couple of pieces. And I didn't really ask them any sort of searching questions, David. I was just well, I was like a politician. I was saying a lot, but not, you know,
yeah.
But I got in touch with one of their executives, a lady. And again, I never really asked her anything. And then one day I just thanked her for everything. And I said, oh, by the way, just out of curiosity, who's doing the special effects for you? And she says, it's John Humphreys. He's making the dummies for us, and he made them for Santilli as well.
Right.
So
the coin sort of dropped then at that point, I imagine.
Well, it was confirmation.
Yeah.
You know, and of course they went on to make the movie. You know, it was okay, not a great film. It's not accurate in any way, shape or form. And, but again, it focused attention on it. Not that long after the movie was in the melting pot, my colleague Russell Callahan, who used to, worked on UFO magazine with Graham. He was Graham's son-in-law. And then later on, he worked on his own little magazine called UFO Data. Now, Russell had made a little video about the alien autopsy. And he got contacted by a guy called Spiros. And he said, well, Philip, you need to speak to this fella. And as soon as he said the name Spiros.
Yeah, the coin then dropped.
I mean, and I thought, can it be the mysterious Spiros? So I phoned him up. And as soon as I started talking to him, I mean, you've spoken to him, David.
Yeah.
He's difficult to shut up.
Yeah.
You know, he's a lovely guy, but he can have to talk.
Yeah.
And he just told me the whole story. Luckily, I got my tape playing. So I tape recorded it. I did a more formal interview with him later where I could ask him questions. And later on, I went to meet him to his house in London, and he showed me his diaries from that time. He'd even done a storyboard that he painted himself. He's a very good artist, this Spiros. His paintings on the wall that are his. Showed me faxes he got from Kodak. And a whole lot more. So not only could he tell me the story, he could support it with the evidence, basically.
Because even he was taken by surprise, the fact that it had got out there, hadn't he? And he didn't realise it was going out all around the world.
No, he'd no idea. I think the first time he ever Googled it, he must have fallen off his chair. And some people find that difficult to believe, but I said, look, this guy is not interested in the subject. He's run a highly successful business, which took up, his life almost 24/7, So that's what he focused on. And it's only because of the movie that was being made, and he decided to take a look, at the alien autopsy, and he was astonished.
Yeah.
And he said recently, he says, when I first met Philip, he says, Philip told me this film will never die, and he says, I thought he was talking nonsense, but he's right,
seeing what we see today, yeah.
Yeah, so, I was able to confirm what Spiros was claiming was indeed correct. He then went to speak at a little conference we had here. That was the first time he'd spoke in public about it. And, he's been in and out of the scene ever since, because it's not the top of his agenda. He is a businessman. He still works, he's a magician. He works in the theatres. He's an artist. He does all kinds of things. So this, at times, comes a bit further down the list of his priorities, which I can fully understand.
Yeah, I think this was taking up a bit of unwelcome time for him of late as well. Yeah,
so, I had to add this to my alien autopsy book, which I'd already published, which I have, and there's no doubt, that Spiros is the man that led the team that faked it, there's no doubt about it whatsoever.
Well, after seeing, I went to London, for his later presentation that he did in the Leicester Square, and I'd been a believer previously, over the years. When I first saw the video, I thought, well, this looks real and everything. But it was quite obvious when I saw that presentation by Spiros at Leicester Square that he did it. He just could answer just about any question about everything to do with it. And one of the biggest questions I ever had about it was, I mean, they had colour film back in 47 or whenever the film was supposed to be shot. So why didn't they use colour film and sound? You know, they'd made.
Well, I mean, there is a soundtrack on it, but what I can tell you is, I mean, Santilli was very fortunate in a lot of ways. We checked with Kodak about this, and during the war there was a shortage of colour film, and the US military had an agreement with Kodak that they took precedent. So come the end of the war, that agreement was rescinded, but there was still a shortage of colour film. Now, what Kodak used to produce was a little brochure called Kodak Salesman, which literally went out to their sales force. And in that, in 1947, believe it or not, there's still a shortage of colour film, so they're advising their salespeople not to sell it, you know, if at all possible. In other words, sell the black and white stuff first, because we haven't got any of the colour stuff. But their agreement with the military was finished.
Yeah. They
didn't have priority anymore, and there was a shortage of colour film. It's as simple as that. Now, also, this is how meticulous Spiros did his research. The type of film that is claimed to be used is called Super XX. And again, we got a brochure from Kodak from that time, and it lists all their films, different types of films. And when you find that one, you go along a sort of a column, and it lists the recommended uses for that film. And that triple XX film, well, the recommended use was for indoor with subdued lighting.
Right. Yeah.
So even the type of films seemed to fit the bill. Now, in 1995, there was a TV show in the States called Sightings, who took a very negative stance against the film. And they said that all military autopsies in that era were filmed in colour. And they went on to show one, and it was in black and white. So, again, you know, there were others that said there is no way that Santilli could have got classified footage out of America, blah, 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 blah. Just so happens, again, around about the same time, a person had gone to a car boot sale here in England and bought some old videotapes. No labels on them, and they thought, I'll just use them to, you know, tape stuff at home. When they put the videotape in the player, there was actually top secret training films for the SAS. You know, so in what people saying you never get top secret film, there's one lot that turns up on a car boot sale.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, the clarity of the film, some people saying it won't be this clear, etc., etc. Again, just by look, a piece of film of Winston Churchill visiting America during the war. I think it was at the top of the one of the tall buildings there, and it looked like it had been filmed yesterday. It really did. I think it was up the Empire State Building.
Yeah, it probably was. Yeah.
Yeah, and it looked like it had been shot yesterday. You know, extremely clear. So the stars seem to align for Santilli just quite by chance. And of course, it was the X-Files TV show was at its height. Yeah. So interest in the subject was immense. And from that very first quip to the Sheffield Star, the Alien Autopsy film took on a life of its own, David. It snowballed. And Santilli was struggling at one point to keep up, so he actually hired a guy called Chris Carey. Chris apparently was well known within the TV industry, and Chris came in, calmed the ship, and he did a lot of the contract negotiations with the various television companies, because he was known by them. He'd worked with them before. I didn't particularly like the guy, but, you know, that's just one of those things, and he was brought in.
I mean, how did you feel when you found out you were led up the garden path basically by Santilli? Because you were lied to, weren't you? You know?
Yeah, I mean, we were all lied to, you know, and I remember having lunch with Ray, one day in London, and I told him to his face, you know, I said, I'll get to the bottom of it. And he says, that's okay, Philip, no problem, you know, and we smiled and carried on having our lunch, you know, and, but I also feel kind of, vindicated because at the time there were those that accused me of being Ray Santilli's apprentice, you know, or his co-collaborator. One of the reasons was at the time, David, my wife and I were having a very large extension built on our house. So people were saying, well, where's Mantle getting the money from? He doesn't have it.
Yeah.
You know, so therefore it must be Santilli that's paying me. Well, they were right. I didn't have the money, but my wife did.
Yeah, I heard that on the other show, Chris's show, yeah.
Yeah, which is perfectly true.
Yeah.
You know, she'd had a property of her own before we met. She'd sold it, and we used part of it to build an extension. So, you know, I was accused of all kinds of things. So it became personal for me.
Yeah.
I could have just walked away and said, it's, you know, it's a fake and leave it at that. But I wanted to prove it, you know, and not just by innuendo or anything like that, but I wanted to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. And it took me a lot longer than I expected it would. But nonetheless, you know, you had, you know, the skeptics like Philip Glass and all this lot, and none of them could prove it. Not one of them. You know, a big skeptic, of course, was Jenny Randall shooting her mouth off. And I said, well, go and prove it then, Jenny. Well, of course she couldn't, you know, but I did. So I often say that, you know, it wasn't one of the skeptics that proved this film to be a fake. It was me.
Yeah.
You know, assisted by my colleagues that I mentioned earlier. And I said, but look on the positive side. When this film came out, David, it raised the profile of both UFOs and Roswell to probably one of its highest levels, certainly its highest levels of interest I've known. And, you know, ufology was the in thing in the mid 90s, and one of the reasons for it was the alien autopsy film. I mean, I mentioned the lady there, you know, well-known author, complained about it, and you know, because Pew Forum made a tidy sum from their conference, not me, all the money went into their coffers. They were a non-profit making organisation, so they deserved to have it. And, you know, she wasn't happy about that. Well, I said, hang on a minute, you had a book out at this point in time. I heard your publisher had to do a reprint. You're going to donate all your royalties to charity as a result. That was the end of that argument, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it raised the profile of both UFOs and Roswell to probably to its, you know, to its highest level I've ever known, David, you know, in my lifetime. So as daft as it may seem, it did have a very positive effect.
Yeah. I think it's done some damage as well into the belief of some of the, you know, some of the other things that we see as well. But I do agree with you. I think it did raise the profile a lot, especially with like the X-Files and things like you mentioned that was out. You know, it's so when you got involved with because I mean with your research, you were actually supported by Spiros when he came out of let's say out of the woodwork, and obviously you had all his admitting everything, and he could actually back up everything he was saying. So I can't really see where everyone, we've still got people now that believe it, you know. I don't understand where this...
Well, it's because they want to believe, David, you know. At the end of the day, it's almost like a religion for them, you know. My mum was a...
It's a little bit like the other one. You know, like we got the Victor Nevada thing about the alien...
I know,
you know,
I know.
What do you call it? Oh, it was the interview, was it? The alien interview.
Yeah.
We've got exactly the same thing as that, although it's not been quite as famous as the alien autopsy, but there's still that thing that there are some people out there believing it, and you know. And
there will always be people that believe in it because, you know, belief is such a strong thing. It is almost sort of a religious type. I mean, if we're honest, all religions are based on belief, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
You know. My mum was religious. She believed in the Bible 100%. She may not have understood it all. She just believed in it, and she was honest about that. But you get these half-wits who, you know, just believe, but they pretend they don't.
Yeah.
They pretend that their opinions are based on some kind of facts or evidence or whatever. And that's just not true. It is purely down to belief. So I have nobody was saying, well, I believe this film is real, you know, and that I have no problem with that. But it's these half-wits who say it's real because of. Yeah. I've got this evidence, and I don't believe Spiros, and I make up all kinds of gibberish, and that brings us right up to today, of course, with the memo that came out about a month ago. So for those not aware, it's an 11-page memo made up of emails for the attention of US billionaire Robert Bigelow. Number of people, the guy writing it is Eric Davis, Colm Kelleher is copied in, Dr. Hal Puthoff, and Dr. Kit Green. And it's based on Kit Green, really, and Kit is an MD, a PhD, did work for the CIA at their so-called weird desk, you know, and I believe he runs a medical practice now, and basically, Kit Green states in this 11-page document, we don't know if the document's authentic or not yet. It could possibly, but we don't know.
Yeah, it's got a date on it, the 23rd of March 2001, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've got a printout of it here.
Yeah, I've got it in front of me too. Yeah, thanks for sending
I'm even mentioned in it, but what Kit Green basically says in 1987/88, he was briefed by someone at the Pentagon who showed him an autopsy file, photos, etc., and that the photos of that alien autopsy were exactly the same. Not looked a bit like or were similar, but he actually says same as the alien autopsy that we all know and love. So I've just said, and he reiterates this. He then goes on to comment, this is his own professional medical comment on what he sees when he views Santilli's film, you know, about the brain and the heart and the organs. And he confirms it again that he believes that the Santilli film is real. And people have taken this as gospel. Now, all I've said is, there is no way that whatever he may, I'm not saying he wasn't shown things by the CIA and the Pentagon. All I'm saying is that he could not have seen the same thing in 1988 as the Santilli film, because it wasn't made until 1995. It wasn't even conceived.
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing, isn't it? Nobody's saying that there wasn't any film of some sort, or any pictures, or something from Roswell. It's just that it's not this film.
Yeah. And you know, like I say, I'm not doubting what he may or may have not been shown or what he's been involved in. But that's the first thing, you know, is that it's just impossible. It's as simple as that. There are no if, buts or maybes. So people are saying, oh, well, the CIA must have been involved back in the 80s in making this fake film with Ray Santilli. Absolute gibberish. You know, in fact, although Spiros made it, he wasn't the guy who came up with the original idea. That was Keith Bateman and his colleagues at AK Music, who made the tank footage, you know, and they made that, you know, a year or so before Spiros became involved. Yeah. And when you meet, I mean this in the very nicest way. Keith's a lovely guy, but when you meet, I've met Keith. I've been at his business premises. I've spoken to some of his staff, and they are the furthest thing that you can get away from the CIA. You know what I mean? Yeah. They are lovely, lovely guys. But then, of course, somebody said, well, you know, Dr. Green's a very intelligent man, and it's this and he's done that. So you have Kit Green looking at the alien autopsy film. That's the Santilli film we're talking about now. And he's talking about it as a you know, a medical professional. And he's saying this, that and the other, which is just rubbish. Because, you know, the brains of the alien were made, I think they're sheep brains, set in jelly. You know, the organs are offal from the butchers. And he's talking about it, you know, as if it's real. You know. And then thirdly, he also talks about Santilli and his PR folk, he uses that word, folks, that they are, I think he calls them, dense.
Yeah.
I
saw that bit further down, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm thinking, well, Santilli didn't really have any PR folk. Who the hell's he talking about? I know all the people who worked in Santilli's office at the time, So who's he talking about? Now, I think he also, in a reply to Richard Dolan, who seems to be one of the only guys to get a response from Kit Green at the moment, he does mention that Santilli's has various films, and I'm thinking, what's he talking about? I don't really know. See, and I think what's happened is that all those mentioned in this memorandum have become extremely embarrassed by its release, because you can see their commitment and their beliefs. And people can't understand, David, why someone with such an academic background as Dr. Green would believe in something like this. They think if he believes in it, then it must be true.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And I try to point out that irrespective of his academic qualifications or whatever he's been involved in, he's still a human like the rest of us, and he has his own belief system. And to me, it's quite clear that his belief system has overruled all of his academic training, everything has done, and because he believed in aliens, he believes that film is real, and he's looking at one. And he's trying to figure out what the organs are of this dead alien, But going back to what he says it was the same as he was shown at the Pentagon, back in the late 1980s. That is quite clearly impossible. So that question needs to be. I mean, I've asked Richard Dolan, and he's been very kind to forward my questions on to Dr. Green, which I've sent. Whether he sent them or not yet, I don't know. I've sent 3 or 4 questions, not a whole list, and these are the points that need answering. What he said to Richard Dolan is that CIA lied to me. That doesn't make any sense. Lying to you and showing you pictures that were the same as Santilli's film are 2 different things.
Yeah.
So I've asked him, how can you have seen the same thing in the 80s that wasn't made until the 1995? It doesn't matter what they told you, you were shown it. So how could it have been the same? The answer is, of course, it can't. It's impossible. It's just that simple. And people, Dolan included, are not convinced. They think, well, isn't that interesting, Philip? I said, no, it's not interesting. Not really. There's several people in my book all claim to have seen the Alien Autopsy film prior to 1995, but none of them went on the record before 1995. Same with this chap, Kit Green. This memo's dated 2001. So it's 6 years down the line. Now, it could be confabulation that's at play. I honestly don't know. But there is nobody that's gone on the record prior to 1995 saying I saw that thing and describe it or have a drawing of it or whatever. It just does not exist.
Yeah, I mean, Richard.
So that brings us right up.
I was going to say, Richard Dolan's coming to Manchester, isn't he, in the next week? So I might even have a chance to speak to him myself about it if I get the chance. But
well, I might be there as well.
Oh, I'll see you there then.
But Richard's agreed to discuss this with me on his own show. I'm just waiting for a date.
Oh, good, fine.
And I'll gladly show him the error of his ways. But again, belief comes into play, and what Dr. Kit Green is saying about what he was shown being the same as Santilli's film is just impossible.
Sure, yeah.
But you get the believers out there. Even Santilli's jumped on the bandwagon saying, "I told you there'd be some documentation that would prove what I'm saying is right." Well, no, it's not. It's not even. The documents haven't even been authenticated yet. Although I would suspect they could be real, but I don't know for sure. One of the other gentlemen named in the documents, I won't say his name, but I contacted him and he did reply, and he said off the record, Philip, yes, they are authentic. But what is interesting is I'm mentioned in them as well. And Bob Bigelow used to have an organisation called NIDS, National Institute of Discovery Sciences, which was to study UFOs, etc. One of the guys working for him at the time was Colm Kelleher. He's mentioned in these documents. Colm did contact me at some point. I couldn't give you a date. And like I mentioned earlier, I just passed him on to Ray Santilli, you know, and Colm then goes on to say in this document that they were sent a Betacam tape from Santilli with the autopsy on it, which Betacam is used in the television industry. It's better quality beta tape. And that seems to fit the bill, because I know Santilli did work like that, because he gave me a copy. And I have it here. And I did the same. I sent it to a colleague, and, you know, he made copies of it on CD with Santilli's permission at the time, for research purposes. They weren't for sale or anything like that. And I can see it from here. I've still got it here sat on my bookshelf. Obviously, I could never pay it, but I've got it.
I haven't got a plan there either.
Yeah, so, you know, that little part of it seems to fit the bill anyway. Doesn't prove that the documents are authentic. All I can say is that I do remember being in contact with Colm, and I do know that Santilli did send Betacam copies out, because I have one myself. So at least, you know, I can confirm that small part of the story. And I'm not saying anything that Dr. Green has said is incorrect about his other briefings. All I'm saying is you can't have seen the same thing in the 80s, because it's impossible, you know. And I've asked him, you know, point blank, how can a man with your medical background look at the Santilli film and say it's real? You're looking at, he's actually giving his own medical assessment of it. You know, how can that be? You know, and I've said, who were Santilli's PR folks that you're talking about? Who were they? Did you ever speak to any of them? Did you speak to Santilli? Tell me their names, because I know everyone that worked in his offices, you know. Whether I'll get a reply, God only knows. But at least I've asked the questions, David. You know what I mean?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I mean, I think we've got to finish this by mentioning you did a show a little while back with Chris Evers and Spiros with Colin Wolford. Now, Colin's been sort of quite central. He's been doing what he calls research over the last, I don't know, how long? 10 years maybe, over the alien autopsy. And he thinks he's got all the answers. Now, what... And I think he's really sort of using a lot of this latest, the revelations of this memorandum to back up his own, side, if you like. What have you got to say about that, Philip? It's, I know there's been quite a lot of, controversy, I don't know if I call it controversy on Facebook, arguments back and forth.
I don't like to call people names, but I'll say this as a fact. Colin's an idiot. You know, that's not being nasty to him. I've never met the lad as far as I'm aware. But he is just a buffoon. And he has no evidence to support anything he's ever said. He doesn't believe in Spiros. He believes Spiros has got handlers, i.e.
I know. This is one of the things that I can't get my head around. That he thinks he's a man in black and etc. And like you, once you've spoken to Spiros and met him, and there's no way he's like that at all. You know, he's just
the guy's a buffoon, and you know, he believes that Santilli has been paid off to originally say it was real and then to say it's not real, which don't make any sense, you know. And Santilli plays along with him. He's played along. He's pulled Colin's strings every now and again. You know, Colin's never met Ray Santilli. He's never met anybody. You know, he's never sat in anybody's office and interviewed them. He's not been to Spiros's house and viewed all his files. And if he did, he'd say, well, they were made by the Mibs. He wouldn't believe. So Colin, as we mentioned earlier, when we talked about belief, Colin is in that category. He has his own belief system, his own conspiracy theory, and there is nothing that will allow him to deviate from that. He's now claiming he's had death threats.
I mean, the thing is, we can actually mention Colin because his name is out there, and he calls himself a serious researcher. So I've got no qualms about mentioning him on this show, because of the position he's put himself into. You know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the death threats. I've been away for a week on holiday, and I read that when I came back, and I nearly fell off my chair.
I know you missed quite a bit, didn't you, while you was away?
Yeah, because there's a newspaper article come out with the Sun. Well, that was my article I worked on with the journalist before I went away, and that set the ball rolling again. And Colin says he has death threats. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, where would that come from? I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be anyone from Spiros. I mean, why would he do that over basically a latex dummy?
Well, exactly. I mean, there is no sense into anything he says. I mean, nothing. I've had private conversations with Colin and quite, happily answered his questions. Still won't have it. So there's nothing you or I or Spiros or Santilli or anyone else can say, even if Santilli signed an affidavit tomorrow saying, sorry guys, I lied, and I lied again, and I lied again, and I lied again.
Well, I mean, Colin's even said himself that Santilli has lied, so where do you stop where the lies, where do you draw the line? Once somebody lies and shows that they can lie,
but that was all right because it was the Mibs that made him lie.
Oh, right.
They paid him off.
Okay.
They paid him to change his story. But if they paid Santilli to change his story, he would have made even more money because he's changed it more times than I've changed my socks. You know what I mean? He's an irritant, and he will, if he keeps blabbing his mouth off like he does. He may end up in serious legal trouble with somebody at some point.
That's how I understand things are going with Spiros now. As I understand it, I think he's had so much of it now that I actually think he's going down that route, isn't he? Like a legal.
Well, he could well be. I mean, I don't know. I'm a friend of Spiros's, but I don't know his every move. Some people think I do. I don't. He's his own man. He will do what he wants. But Spiros has no problem in people saying, I don't believe you, Spiros. I have no problem with people saying to me, I don't believe you, Philip. But when they start accusing you of things and making things up that are not true, that's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
I mean, Colin has tried to make out that there's some kind of ill feelings between me and Michael Hesseman. I've no ill feelings towards Michael. We went our separate ways over an issue. I like Michael. I think he's a lovely, hard-working guy. He's very passionate, and sometimes he gets a bit over-passionate, and it gets him into a bit of bother. But Michael's a nice guy.
There's probably no reason at all why you should be enemies anyway.
No, we Michael and I disagreed over something, so we went our separate ways. I have the greatest respect for Michael, even though I don't agree with a lot that he says, And that, there shouldn't be any problem with that. But, Wolford's tried to make it out that, we hate each other. I've no idea what Michael's feelings are towards me. All I can say is that I have no ill feelings towards Michael at all. And not only Michael, I don't really have any ill feelings about anybody, David.
That's like, I think, like you say, we call it bad blood and ill feelings, but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think anyone hates Colin Wolford. We just might think that he's a bit silly in a lot of things he's saying. But does anyone really hate him enough to say, we're going to kill you if you don't shut up, Exactly.
I mean, the guy's, he's off his trolley, he's Colin, and I don't wish the lad any harm, but if he carries on, he's going to do himself harm, and he's been given enough warnings about it, and,
well, this is why I feel that I think Spiros is enough, because he's been counting up all the copyright issues that Colin's been using on his website.
I mean, I'll give you an example. Even though I am a friend of Spiros's, we follow the same football team, and I wanted to use a couple of the pictures, still photographs. I still, out of courtesy, asked for permission.
Yeah, as you would. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, Spiros says, you don't need to ask me, Philip. I said, no, out of respect and out of courtesy, I do. I know you'll say yes, but I want to ask you, because that's the right thing to do. And, I have no bad blood with anyone. I don't want to get into arguments, with anyone over anything, and if people don't want to believe what I've done, well, that's fine, so be it, on your way. But I'm certainly not going to fall out over it.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but it's a shame, you know. I mean, you know, I can understand where some people come from if they're just, you know, because they are believers, and I accept that. But to start throwing accusations and spreading false information about people, I mean, I think Colin even claimed that Spiros has a criminal record.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, which I thought was disgusting, really.
Yeah, it doesn't. You know, I mean, I've been arrested, but I don't have a criminal record.
Yeah, I think we all have at some point.
You know,
over a slight motoring offence or something. Yeah.
Well, exactly. It was a something and nothing. You know, I've been fined for speeding in the past. So what? You know, big deal. You know. Yeah. And it's like when they look at politicians now and they say, oh, when he was at university, he smoked some weed. So what? Mm. You know, isn't that what university students do?
Yeah, I think some of them do it too much, but there you go.
but what I'm saying is it's no big deal. And Spiros doesn't have a criminal record. You know, so it's when you get mudslinging like that, that's when it's too much.
Yeah. I mean, that was actually a blog, wasn't it, by someone even unknown. So, I mean, you can really, you can make any sort of thing up in a blog and put it out there, but you need evidence to back it up.
Well, you know, Spiros is a lovely guy. You know, he is exactly who he claims to be. It's irritated a few people that he's talked about writing a book down the years, and there's no sign of it yet. But like I've tried to say, you know, the alien autopsy is not the top of his list, and he's his own man, and he'll write his book when he's good and ready. You know, and no amount of talk or persuasion will change that. You know, I've tried to persuade him to publish it, and I failed. Yeah. You know, so I've now given up. I've realised he'll do it when he's ready, and that's it. So just leave it. You know.
I think we're even further on than that, and they're talking about an actual Hollywood blockbuster film, aren't they?
Well, Spiros has mentioned that, yes. You know,
he mentioned that on my show as well about a film. In the process.
It's not something I have any more information on. All I know is what he's made public, and I won't ask him. Because if he wants to tell me what it is, then he'll tell me. And, but yes, I believe there is I don't know if it's a signed and sealed deal. I couldn't say, but let's put it this way, I think there's certainly serious interest.
Yeah. Well, as I understand it, Brad Pitt's taking your part.
Well, I can understand that. Why not? You know, they'd be queuing up to play my part, won't they? But Tom Cruise is no good because he's too small. I'm 6 foot tall. He's only about 5'6", isn't he?
But, you know. Anyway, I'd be interested to see how that goes, wouldn't it, Phil?
Well, it would. I mean, you know, because, you know, there's a lot more to Spiros' story than just...
Yeah. And I think it'll be a good thing because the actual real facts can get out there, and I think, you know, to actually people sit down and actually watch a film of all the ins and outs and all the wrangles and things, and I think it'll make people understand a lot more about what actually happened with this alien autopsy.
Yeah, I think the true story of it is far more interesting than any rubbish that Ray Santilli can come up with. You know,
I mean, and also, really as we know, a lot of people don't want to sit down and read a book about it. They, you know, but if you actually put it on a screen in front of them, so they can actually see it all being laid out in front of them, you know.
Well, I can tell you here and now. There's a gentleman approached me about writing a screenplay based on my work. Right. Now, it's no big blockbuster or anything like that. I would love to say, you know, I got the biggest movie company in the world interested. I would be lying if I said that, but I haven't. It's a gentleman I got to know a few years back in the States, and his main business was contracts. He used to deal with film and television contracts. And out of the blue, earlier this year, I haven't spoken to him in a while, he contacted me about the alien autopsy film. And he said he was looking to write his first screenplay, so he's never written one before. And he thought it might be an idea. So I sent him a copy of my book and said, all you need to know is in there. I can fill in any blanks. And whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. But of course, even if he writes a screenplay, it doesn't mean it'll be made into a movie. But the point is, David, I am flattered that someone thinks it's worthy of that, even if nothing comes of it. I am hugely flattered by that.
No, you should. I mean, it's a brilliant book. It should. I think it'd make a fantastic movie, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Nobody expected this 11-page memo to pop up and reignite everything. So,
and I was flabbergasted actually when all this popped up again. And that Linda Moulton Howe thing. In actual fact, when I saw her reading that out, I actually had tears streaming down my face laughing. I thought this is hilarious.
I just sat there shaking my head. But this is how things happen. I'll give you an example. At the weekend, Calvin Parker of the Pascagoula case and I were on a live chat thing, and Calvin's there in Mississippi, I'm here in Pontefract. We were about halfway through, and Calvin looked to his right. His wife was just off camera, and he said, "I've got to go." He says, "There's a gentleman just turned up. He's driven 600 miles, and he's a bit upset. He's seen something and he wants to tell me about it." And that happened while we were live on air. So Calvin then told me the next day that this gentleman, he turned up with his wife, I believe, didn't see the same as Calvin, but he witnessed something on the same night as Calvin, but in a different location. So that's October the 11th, 1973. And he just, out of the blue, turned up on his doorstep. So what I'm saying is things do happen completely out of the blue. And what I can tell you, and this is a real exclusive for you, David, literally during the night last night, the first draft of a screenplay based on Calvin Parker's story in Pascagoula has arrived in my inbox.
Excellent. In fact, I actually want to get Calvin on this show, but I know he's done quite a few. So
he'll speak to you.
So I was actually giving it a little bit of a rest for a while. I mean, I've got a few shows lined up, and this one was an extra one that's ended up being popped in. But if you would actually point him in my direction and mention me, I will definitely get him on the show.
Now, again, it doesn't mean Calvin signed an agreement with a producer. It doesn't mean the film will get made, but it's taken a step nearer. We've got the first draft of the screenplay. I was actually reading it before I spoke to you this morning because it came in overnight. And Calvin's already read it, and he's happy with it, apart from one or two little things. And that's the main thing. So we've taken the first step, shall we say, down the path to possibly getting a movie made out of Calvin's story.
Yeah. I've got his book. I'm looking forward to meeting him in August, actually.
He's a great guy. I've not met him, but I speak to him every week on Skype. And he is he's got that southern charm about him. And a lot's happened since we published his book just a year ago. And to such an extent, I'm actually working on a revised edition of the book. So I hope to get that done shortly.
I know I was a bit stunned by that. I've just bought the original one, so I'll just buy that one as well now.
It's all right, David. I'll let you have a review copy, mate. No problem.
Right, really? Thank you.
But I hope to have had it done by now. But I was poorly for 7 or 8 weeks. So that's kind of set me back a while, and I've still got some more hospital on the horizon. So once that's out of the way, I can get back on track. You never know. We might see you in Manchester as well.
I'll be in Manchester. And I'll be seeing you in Pontefract and Manchester, and hopefully you'll be coming to the Colonel Holt one in September.
Well, I've got my ticket. Thank you very much. Again, everything I do, David, revolves around my health.
Yeah, sure, I know, and I and everyone out there wishes you all the best with that. I do understand that. But,
it's just the way it is. Some days in the morning I feel great, but by come the afternoon, it's a different kettle of fish, but it's something I have to live with, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I know.
But it will be interesting now to see where things go with the alien autopsy. Maybe I'll get some death threats that'll give me a good laugh.
Let's hope not, mate.
But it'll be interesting. It will be interesting to see now if these documents can be authenticated or not, whichever case they may be. Whether Kit Green will answer my emails that's been sent to him via Richard Dolan. I hope so. I don't hold much hope, but I just keep my fingers crossed. and we'll see where things go.
I mean,
and like I said,
I think we should emphasise that there could well be old footage and alien bodies, but it wasn't these ones that's in Spiros's film.
Exactly. I'm not trying to disrespect Dr. Green about what he may have been involved in or may not, or what he was shown. All I'm concentrating on is the alien autopsy film and his comments surrounding that. I keep out of the rest of it. Yeah. But like I said, the offer is still there. If anyone wants a free PDF file of my book, Roswell Alien Autopsy, that's open. Just contact me and I'll gladly send you one.
And as I say, I will put that on my Paranormal Dimensions page on the network. And I think really we've taken that as far as we can take it, haven't we, Philip? So it's, I
think we've covered much of it there. Yeah. I mean, we could have gone into all the minute details, but I'm not sure your listeners were that interested in that. They can, if they want the full spec of how it was made, listen to what you did with Spiros.
That's right, yeah. And also the shows that you've done with Spiros on Chris's show as well. I'll put all those links on the page as well for anyone that's interested. But I think Spiros covers it all pretty well. All the challenges that he's laid out, find this and find that, you'll never see another one of these, because he's made it.
Exactly.
It's all out there for anyone to hear if anyone is that interested in it, and I think you should be. If you're a believer in the alien autopsy, you think it's real, then I think you really need to reevaluate that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also, just one last thing, I'd love to see a little documentary series, David, that details the alien autopsy from its very first inception, which was with Philip Yarman and Keith Bateman, right the way through to this memo. I'd like to document the hoax right the way through. So any TV producers or documentary producers listening, give us a call. There's an idea for you.
Well, I've got one or two little contacts. I might be able to. I might suggest that.
There you go. I just think we could quite easily in maybe a 2 or 3 documentary series lay it all out from beginning to end, and there you go.
I mean, Nick Pope might be able to help you there. He's got quite a lot of contacts in the business, so Nick, I'll be getting in touch.
All right, mate.
Anyway, Phil, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Hopefully, I will speak to you in Manchester. I'll buy you a beer.
That'd be great.
And it's good. It's not next weekend, is it? It's the weekend after. So it's not too far away. So I hope your health holds out and keeps you on your feet and everything. And I just wish you all the best and thanks for coming on the show. And
my pleasure, David. And if I don't see you in Manchester, I'll hope to see you in Pontefract.
I hope I do see you in Manchester. But obviously, where I am if you ever want to speak and all that. But thanks ever so much for coming on the show. I think you've actually cleared up a lot of things that people might have been confused about. And it's nice to hear sort of your entire perspective on the thing. Because it's sort of been revolving a lot around Spiros, but without sort of emphasising your involvement so much, which is what I wanted to do. And I hope that you'll come back on the show and we'll go into more of your previous researches and books and everything that, over the years, because you're quite a pioneer in British ufology.
I don't know about pioneer. I've just been around a long time, David.
I mean. in my world, you're a pioneer of ufology. Anyway, Phil, it's been great listening to you, and you will come back on, I hope, at some point. And
I will, mate, and you have a great day.
Yeah, I will do. Thank you. I'm going to go have some lunch now. But anyway, everybody out there, thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the show. You've been listening to the Paranormal Dimensions show on the Paranormal UK radio network. I'm David Young. You've been listening to Phil Mantle on the alien autopsy, and no doubt you'll be hearing more about it. Thanks for coming, Phil.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Bye out there. Cheers.
Paranormal Dimensions is as bright and powerful as our celestial star, the sun. And although it's expending thousands of pounds of energy every minute of the day, have no fear. There's plenty left.
Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.